Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, Emerald Planet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. and the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations looking for those 1,000 best practices, technologies, services, and products as we move through the 21st century. And as we go to a planet of 9 billion people by 2050, how we're going to be able to provide the basic infrastructure, all the needs that they have. And of course, some of those needs depend on energy and telecommunications. And I have a gentleman sitting right beside me who is an expert at that and actually addressing that across the continent of Africa. And that's a very big market you have out there. This is Paul Delkaso. He's the CEO of Artilium Africa and Tritente Global Energy Group. Also, we need to add in there telecommunications too. And this name, he's from Alexandria in Virginia. And Paul, welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I'm glad to have you here. This is really exciting, the work that you're doing, and specifically since Africa is really on the move now and advancing. There's some countries that are still, in conflict and mired in, less than stellar types of activities, but most of the continent of Africa, the 54 nations, are really moving forward. So tell us a little bit about your company first, and then we're going to get into this focus on Africa.
By the way, thank you very much for inviting us. This is an excellent opportunity for us. Our company, Tritente Global Energy Group and TriStar Group, and we are also partnering with Artilium NV from Belgium. We created a telecom company called Artilium Africa. We currently have several energy projects in Africa, about $6 billion projects. One in Ethiopia, we signed a contract with them for $3.6 billion, and then we're doing some transmission line in Kenya as well.
That's absolutely fantastic, and those are in U.S. dollars, so that's real money that you're talking about there, Paul. And looking at Artilium Africa, tell us a little bit about why you're getting involved there in the telecommunications aspects of this, and then how do you tie in the energy and telecom together, which really is how you have to do it on the African continent.
That is correct. As you know, mainly I want to talk about some of the African continent that has the fastest growing economy in the world. 7 out of 10, the fastest growing economies in Africa.
And that's amazing that most people would not think that. And the people are just kind of sitting back and Africa is just moving.
Exactly. And most people especially understand is Africa is one country, but there are 54 nations.
That's what's incredible about the whole
nations
thing.
That we have to follow and work. So what we do is technically is on a telecom part of it, since we're doing energy is the core factor so that you can facilitate the telecom industry. So we merge both together, and currently we are working in several African countries to expand the telecom industry as well. As you know, there are 1.2 billion Africans currently, and they have a 9/10 of probably 7% growth every day. If that was in Washington or in the US, with that growth, technically we have to create a size of Phoenix, Arizona, or Denver, Colorado in general that they could be able to service. But Africa is not moving at all. So what we're trying to put is envision the concept that we have on the telecom industry and the energy industry and put together and to make Africa our goal for several markets that we want.
That's absolutely fantastic. I want to go back. You talked about these numbers, over $6 billion US dollars being invested between Ethiopia and Kenya. And looking at the size and the scale, what actually types of technologies are you putting in on the energy side, and how is that addressing addressing a very specific need in each of these two countries?
First of all, on the Ethiopia part, we're putting 1,200 megawatts with our partner Data Group, which is the
And that equates to how many households, if we can?
Oh, 1,200 megawatts. Let me give you an example. Ethiopia, probably 20 years ago, they have only 150 megawatt power-wise. Currently, they are growing up to 4,000. Technically, the population is growing up to 100 million in a few months or so. It will do a lot of manufacturing plants, and as well as population lighting system and energy grows for infrastructure and other products that the government wanted to issue.
So what they're doing then is they're developing the basic infrastructure that you would have in any Western nation around the globe in order to meet the needs of this emerging and expanding population base.
That is absolutely correct. You know, Ethiopia is, for instance, I'm focusing on that because the African Union headquarters is in Ethiopia. Our business is really embedded from that country and commercialize it or spin it out to other African countries. Ethiopia is one of the fastest growing economy in the world, and the population growth is there.
The project in Kenya.
The project in Kenya is a transmission line. It's completely different than producing power.
In order to bring the power
but
through.
The Ethiopian government is planning probably to sell for neighboring countries the power that they're producing. And I think currently they're going to have about 7,000 to 10,000 megawatts soon to come.
That's just absolutely incredible. I mean, it's just incredible. That's all you can really say about it. Artilium, you have these micro data centers. And you're really having that as almost a springboard as far as expanding your telecom business, you know, throughout not only in Ethiopia and, you know, in Kenya, but you want to do this across the continent of Africa and all 54 countries. So tell us a little bit about, you know, you're serving more people, it's less costly, it's faster to put this in this way. How did you come upon this idea, and why did you focus on this, and your competitors haven't really done that?
It is exciting for us technically. What we're trying to put together is, you know, in any given country, if the government provides for its population energy, education, and infrastructure, and a telecom, the country will go definitely. Eisenhower did it after the war. Eisenhower
World War II in the United States.
Exactly. He focused on those three factors, and we moved from ruler to superpower.
Right.
So in any developing nation in Africa, if the government imposed those three factors, in addition to the telecom industry.
Let's list those three factors again. What are those three factors again, Paul?
Infrastructure. Energy.
And
education.
Okay.
We add on top of that telecommunication. That makes it unique for us because Chris Dukuro, which is NEAH, one of the excellent provider for our energy backup service or a battery service, that system that he has that we're going to implement in our system as well. So we probably will have another time to discuss about that matter, but it is an exciting project that we're putting together in Africa.
Yeah, one of the things I found very interesting, and I'm going to jump all the way down the continent to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where we've been working over the last 8 or 9 years, but they had a specific number of telecom towers, the cell towers, and they had 9 countries all fighting over this huge country. Not a single cell tower was ever touched by anybody, because everybody had to use the cell towers. So if one group would take it down, then nobody had communication. It was just amazing to me, because I went out to several of these towers and they had a little rusty fence, there was no guards, nothing. We're just sitting out here, literally in the jungle. Nobody bothered it. So that shows you, and the reason I brought that up, Paul, that shows you is just how people really want to be connected to the world, and now that's on the African continent, it's actually happening.
Exactly. That's what we're trying to put. I don't know, with any business mind, whoever has the best way to do business is in Africa at this time. Everything is lined up. Of course, there is some problems here and there, because problem is the sign of life, right? We need problem to come to us so that we can improve whatever we're doing. So unless there is a problem, there's no time that we could be able to improve in any part of the world. Africa has a problem, and it will improve that problem. And Africa will
Yeah, we're
grow.
talking about Africa, and again, I want to go back. Africa is 54 different nation states, some very small, like Eritrea, and then you got huge countries like Nigeria, the Congo, and some of the others. And so when you're looking at this diversity across all these different nations, different languages, different religions, different everything. Africa is diverse
Absolutely
diversity.
Right. Absolutely
and
right.
so how do you address all that, Paul, so you're meeting those needs, but yet you're able to weave all this together? What's the commonality of all this? Is it the energy? Is it the telecom? Is it both? Other things?
All those factors are in there, but the main thing is understanding the culture of Africa. I'm originally from Ethiopia, as I say. I know the culture. I know how the system is being implemented. As a diaspora, I have to go back and implement the concept that we are in. You cannot put the American system or European system that you have here, impose it in Africa in order to have.
It needs to be adapted to the culture.
That's the core factor. That's why many countries or many businesses, they go to Africa and they fall apart. The reason why there is no communication. The core factor is knowing the culture, knowing the communication, which each individual, or the landowner and farmer and the government procedures and so on.
Well, having lived, worked, and traveled in 89 countries, I found actually very early on it was much more important to concentrate on the culture, the cultural imperative, the history, than just to study language. Because there's a lot of people who were studying languages, they were great in the language, they had no idea where they were and how to deal with the people locally. So looking at this diversity, we're just about out of time. What would be to the diaspora? What's your message to them in about 30 seconds? And then I got one last question for you.
That's very, 30 seconds is a little bit short.
You can do it.
However, any diaspora or any institution that's willing to go to Africa to invest, they must understand the culture and the system. That is the key concept that we need to embed in their system. African countries are ready, and most of the country leaders that I met, ready to bring the diaspora and the foreign investors in Africa. And ECS, which is export credit agencies that we have all over the world, about 85 of them, including US Exim Bank, has to participate in order to help Africa.
And they need to be proactive in all this. This is the one thing I think, Paul, that you and I, if we were sitting and talking about this over a nice Ethiopian coffee, is that the government must be proactive and not reactive.
That's correct.
And all governments.
All the governments has to do that.
We're running out of time. The last question, of course, where do you see your organization being in the next 5, 10, 15 years? And we got to be quick.
I'm going to make it very quick. Our old projects that we have, or we try to implement in Africa, are not project-based. Most of them are program-based. In other words, we bring programs to the country that will sustain them for 50 to 100 years.
Fantastic.
This is a unit program that we have together.
Fantastic. This is Paul Delkaso. He's the CEO of Artilium Africa, Tritente, Global Energy Group. It's great, the Emerald Planet.
I helped turn my child's public school into a whole new kind of school. One with a curriculum that really motivates kids. One that has extended hours, 6 days a week, year-round. With loads of academic, cultural, and recreational activities. One that has support services like medical and dental right there. A school where parents' involvement is encouraged. Where teachers have more time to teach. And students are excited about learning. There's just one problem. My child doesn't ever want to come home. You can help turn your school into a community school for excellence. Find out how. Call 1-877-LOVE-TO-LEARN.
It's coming. Right to your neighborhood. And when it does, you may be surprised. It's your Social Security statement of your benefits, and it's going to help you plan your financial future. Your benefit statement will tell you how much Social Security you're eligible to receive and when you'll get it. Then you'll know how much you need to save for retirement, because that's coming too. The future is in your hands. Choose to save.
The toxic fumes from this meth lab are seeping into Jamie's sinus cavity. Ammonia vapors invade her throat. Toxic gases fill her lungs. Jamie's body is deteriorating. And she doesn't even know it.
Jamie, dinner.
So, who has a drug problem now? Find out how meth affects you at drugfree.org/.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you on a week-to-week basis as we're looking for those 1,000 best practices, technologies, services, and products. And of course, the leaders are making a difference as we move towards 2050. And in 2050, it's going to have about 9 billion, yes, 9 billion people on the planet. So how are we going to be able to take care of all those people, but go beyond just existence, but actually to enhance and improve the quality of life? And so we have a gentleman who's going to be coming on by Skype, is going to talk about that. And then I have my good friend Dan Weiss sitting right beside me. Of his own organization here in Washington, D.C., and I'll introduce him in just a minute. But we have Chris Delkaso, who is the CEO of NEAH Power of Seattle, Washington, coming in by Skype. And then sitting right beside me, again, is Dan Weiss, who's the president of Terra Marco. And Dan, you're doing all kinds of things. I mean, there's no end to all the kinds of things that you're doing. But Chris, welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Dr. Sam, pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here. And you are doing really exciting work and fantastic technology. And we get down to Dan's question for you. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But tell us a little bit about the NEAH Power. What is it? Its vision and mission, please.
NEAH Power Systems is a company that envisions being the leading renewable energy and energy solutions provider in 5 years. The technology that we're going to talk about has been developed with an excess of over 65 million invested into the company from the likes of Intel Capital, the US Navy, variety of other tier 1 and other venture capital investors. We've developed what we call the power chip, or it's a silicon technology-based battery that is, in our opinion, world-class and really trumps everything else that we see out there.
And we're going to talk about that. So you're going to have the soapbox to talk about that in a minute, Chris. But looking at this NEAH Power Chip, which you actually have trademarked that name, what is it? How is it different than the other technologies that are out there and others that call themselves super batteries? But my understanding is you actually have already exceeded the parameters of these, what would be considered the super batteries by companies both in the United States and abroad.
So if you look at the development of batteries beyond like lead acid, kind of the starter batteries in your car, the batteries that go into your phone and computer, the technology has been pretty much the same how they've been manufactured for the last 50 years. You put very thin coatings, it's a very two-dimensional structure, very fragile. What we have done, which is really the very disruptive and innovative development, is taken silicon, which is the same building block of the computer chip industry, created a three-dimensional structure that gives us the outstanding performance that we are currently seeing. So we are seeing superior performance. We can manufacture with existing computer chip manufacturing infrastructure. And thirdly, our ability to scale to produce large volumes is really dependent on how much computer chip manufacturing infrastructure is out there. and we all know that that is pretty widespread.
Yeah, the whole thing about this, Chris, before I have Dan come on and ask his question, so you're talking about this is really a disruptive technology, but it's a disruptive technology from the standpoint that you're magnifying what you're able to extract out of the existing system. Like the chip manufacturers in most places around the world, there's excess capacity. So I'm assuming what you're saying is you're going to take that excess capacity and bring that into productivity, but actually it's a multiple factor of productivity that you're going to extract out of those existing facilities. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
That is exactly what I'm really pleased to share with you. What we are doing is taking factories that are widespread in China, Taiwan, Southeast Asia, US, Europe. Using 10-generation-old technology, we can use that to build our power chip battery technology. We've now demonstrated it. We are in discussion with some of the large chip manufacturers to potentially co-locate and manufacture batteries at their facilities. So it's a very exciting time for us.
Oh my goodness, I think that's exciting for everyone, Chris. So thank you for being here and share this. And it seems like we're doing okay. So Dan, why don't you ask your question?
Well, Chris, tell the international and domestic viewers exactly why this is different, say, in contrast to the much notarized Tesla battery system.
So today, the way an 18650 battery is made is you effectively have 3 layers. You put a very thin coating, talking about 10 to 50 microns thick film, on what's considered the anode side, the cathode side, and you have a separator membrane in between that. What we are doing is taking silicon, creating a 3-dimensional structure, so it allows you to pack more material in per unit weight or volume. So today we are demonstrating anywhere from 4 to 6 times more energy per unit volume at half or less the weight of an equivalent battery. So that metric is commonly referred to as energy density. So the energy density of our battery is far better than any of the battery technologies out there.
Well, that's really interesting. So this is something that I know you've been working on for a long time, tremendous amount of time and materials, money in getting this moving forward. So when are you going to be deploying this power chip technology, and what markets do you think you're going to be addressing first?
So we are currently building product for our first customer. It's a wearable police camera. We can't really disclose who the customers are.
Okay.
But it takes the current camera from a 4-hour operational capability to 13 hours of operational capability. So you're talking about almost 4 times increase in performance.
That is incredible. And I even heard some of our technical engineers here going, wow. So you've impressed a lot of people just right here in the TV studio. So thank you for sharing that. So it goes back again, because we're going to kind of leave this technical aspects of it and get into more of the business side of it. So one last time, what makes your battery so special that, Tesla's looking over its shoulder at what you're doing and how you're doing it?
Today we are demonstrating 4 to 6 times better performance than incumbent batteries. Right? That's
no matter who's producing it.
No matter who's producing it. So imagine your average cell phone, rather than charge it once a day, you could charge it once every 4 days. So the go-to-market strategy is to really go after these consumer-oriented applications, because that's a very quick time to market for that. We are looking at, we are pleased to announce a partnership with Artilium. You had with your previous guest, Paul. We are looking at deploying 5 kilowatt-hour type battery backup for some of the applications, the micro data centers that they are looking at. We're also beginning to evaluate EV, electric vehicle requirements, because if you can reduce the weight by that order of magnitude, or you can extend the range, that is a tremendous value proposition.
Yeah, that's incredible. And we just brought this up here. I think this is the architecture for your microchip. Do you want to share anything about this, or is there anything here that our domestic international audience may like to know about this microchip we're looking at?
So the picture at the top is really the picture of one single cell, one single micro battery. So roughly in a thumbnail size, you have 320,000 micro batteries. So you can imagine you're getting the performance of these micro batteries that are now tied together, where you can charge and discharge them very quickly. You have performance that rather than having just a two-dimensional surface, you've got that entire structure filled that gives you the higher energy density, meaning more energy per unit weight. So we've got a lot of patents that cover this. The company holds 15 patents, 11 pending patent applications. We obviously have a lot of trade secrets related to this that we would prefer not to share. But yeah, it's a very exciting time for us.
Oh my gosh! I don't know how you have to pinch yourself ever so often to bring yourself back to reality. Pat Sheppard, who is a mutual friend of Dan, myself, and many other people, I know his Vaporgenics is collaborating with you. Tell us a little bit about the relationship with Pat and his organization, and how are you collaborating together? I know that he's going to be presenting things, the U.S. Department of Defense and other organizations. But why this collaboration? You're getting ready to launch, and you're already collaborating well beyond the parameters of your own company.
Well, we really believe in punching above our weight class, so we partner with leading-edge partners like Pat Sheppard and Dan Bice, who's a consultant to the company as well. So in Pat's specific case, we are leveraging a lot of relationships that he has into the defense side of the business to showcase the NEAH technology for, dismounted soldier applications, naval applications, just across the entire military and commercial spectrum. Our initial focus is on consumer devices, so it's a very natural complement to what we are doing.
That's fantastic. Just ask him just a general question.
General question?
Yeah.
Well, my question was, why are you working with our friend Paul over in Africa? Because my understanding...
Now, Paul who?
Oh, I'm sorry. Paul Delkaso was on the show just before this segment. But you're over in Africa working on very small scale and very large scale. Could you just explain? Because I think it's got a lot of applicability around the world.
And you've got about 15 seconds to do that, because I got one last question, so you got to be quick.
Sure. The smaller applications are low-hanging fruit for consumer devices, but the market, there's about 2 billion devices sold on the cell phone side. A lot of the same battery technology can then be packaged for larger applications like what we are talking about with Paul Delkaso and Artilium to provide off-grid applications as well.
My last question to you, you got about 10 seconds. Where you plan to be in the next 5, 10, 15 years?
We really see high adoption in the consumer side, in the EV space, in the micro off-grid space. With performance like this, we really think the sky is the limit for us.
That's fantastic. Chris Delkaso, CEO, NEAH Power of Seattle, Washington. Thank you for being with us as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.
Saving for retirement might be easy for some folks, but for others, it might take a little more work. And for those who haven't started, there are still things you can do to catch up.
Oh, that is good news.
Like getting out from underneath past debt. And don't get wrapped up with high-interest credit cards.
Get you some eyes.
Be diversified with your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Your financial goals are not out of reach. The choice is clear. For a happy ending, choose to save.
Everyone with alcohol and drug addiction is in the same boat. With treatment, you can find solid ground. For drug and alcohol information and treatment referral for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP.
are you sure you want this tattoo? Because just do it.
Some mistakes in life are permanent. Like hearing loss. To learn how to protect your hearing, visit ASHA.org.
You've probably heard about heart disease, but did you know that it's the #1 killer of women nationwide? Heart disease claims more lives each year than breast cancer, lung cancer, or strokes combined. But there are steps you can take to protect yourself against it. For more information on how you can prevent heart disease, contact your local American Heart Association or visit their website at www.americanheart.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome, and glad you're with us on the Emerald Planet TV as we come to you looking around the globe in 144 different nations. And we look at these different nations on all the continents, even in the continent of Antarctica, because we're searching really for what we call the best of the best technologies, and also the people, the processes, and the products that are going to make a difference as we move through the 21st century. And it takes all of this to deal with a planet that's going to go from 7 billion to 9 billion people, and possibly by the end of the century we may have 12 to 13 billion people. So what we do with all these people at the same time is how do we enhance and expand the quality of life for each of them is what's critically important. And we have two gentlemen that are coming on together that are going to be working on this. One is Theo Shalgan, and the other is Jim Rickson. And I think Jim is going to be coming into us by Skype, and he's here right now. Theo may be joining us in a few minutes. And this is the Orbitron Dialysis for Lubricants. Quite a long name. This is from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And Jim, you're here with us?
I am, Sam. Thank
okay,
you.
Welcome. Glad to have you here. And sitting right beside me is the special guest, Dan Bice, who is the president of Telmarco, and he's going to be here with us throughout the time. And it sounds like maybe Theo, are you here now? Theo's still not here. Anyway, Jim, welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you having us very much.
Glad to have you with us. Tell us, Orbitron, what is the company, a little bit about it, maybe the vision and mission, and then we'll get into this whole thing about this dialysis for lubricants. I'm intrigued by the name of what you're going by with your company and also the process.
Certainly, Sam. Thank you so much. And Dan, hello. Good to see you. The Orbitron company has developed a patent and a unique, innovative technology that purifies lubricant fluids in a variety of industrial systems. Think of a system as dialysis for lubricants. The Orbitron, which is about the size of a small refrigerator, hooks up to a kidney loop for any one of a number of mechanical apparatuses that use lubricants. The contaminants then begin to move through our system and are forced through a series of electrostatic fields. The energy from these fields pulls the contaminant particles out of the oil, and it bonds with the filter. Once it's purified, once it's fully purified, then it begins to remove the varnish from the inside of the machine, so it runs in a perpetual, pristine bath of lubricant, simply.
Yeah, and looking at this, what makes that the equipment that you have truly unique?
So many of the technologies that exist out there today, and there are scores of technologies, are what's known as membrane technology or chemical additive technology. So you're forcing the fluids through a membrane that's trying to capture the particles, or you're adding chemicals that will cause them to what's called agglomerate or stick together. So they make bigger particles that are easier to catch in a filter. The problem with that is that you have to force it through a membrane, and that membrane ultimately gets clogged up, as in any filter, and so you have to perpetually change those. In addition, the electrostatic process takes it to the molecular level. So instead of cleaning, visual particles, if you will, from the oil, it takes it down to the molecular level of cleaning. The oil is literally cleaner than when it was new.
Oh, and that's really incredible. Now, tell us about the environmental as well as the economic benefits of this equipment that you have? Because I think this is called the Orbitron 3000. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir. So again, its field of application is wide. It can be cargo ships moving through the ocean, military vessels. It can be power plants. It can be molding machines, injection molding machines, automobile manufacturing, anything where hydraulic fluids are used in a robotic type of situation or with turbines. So the field of use are really endless. You don't change the oil again. So when you change the oil on a large cargo vessel, costs, let's say, $143,000.
$143,000 US dollars to change the oil in a cargo vessel?
To purchase the oil, to change it, not to do the physical change, the physical purchase of the oil. Our machine costs less than that. So one time, one change of the oil, and you're in the black.
That's absolutely incredible. Now, looking at the extended life of these fluids that you're actually doing the filtration on, and we have this very large submarine here, and I'll let you talk about how it would be applicable to that. But how does this actually extend the life cycle of these fluids going through the Orbitron 3000?
So one of the misnomers, or that has been falsely proposed in the universe out there, if you will, is that the oils break down. They don't actually break down. What happens is that contaminants that impregnate the oil, if you will, little chips of metal and whatnot that come off of the inner workings of the machine, get suspended in the oil, and when the oil gets dirty enough, it can't hold them any longer, and they start to drop out and they stick to the sides of, be it a turbine, as you're looking at now, or the inside of the turbine that drives that nuclear submarine that you were just looking at. By perpetually removing those from the oil never breaks down. It never gets dirty. So it remains pristine constantly. Think of your car. You have to change the oil every 3,000 miles. Well, at 2,999 miles, that oil is very dirty. And then you change it with clean oil. With our technology, it never gets dirty.
So once you put in this, whatever that fluid is in whatever this mechanical feature, then that can just stay there in perpetuity? Using your
Yes, sir. It operates 24/7. It has a data uplink so that it can feed data via a satellite back down to a central control, so people know what their vessel is looking like. If you have a cargo ship in the middle of the Indian Ocean, the last thing you want is a malfunction out there. So with this, you can perpetually monitor the quality of those fluids and what's happening in that turbine 24/7.
That is absolutely incredible. Dan, your question.
Jim, I understand that you purchased this technology that was operating on a limited basis or literally around the world. What have you done to improve it, and what can we expect?
Sure. We did a number of things, Dan, and we've updated the software system and made it a multi-field Windows type of application, if you will, so that you can scroll down and dive deeper into the workings of the operation, so you can set various parameters. What we've determined is that a number of our customers are not one size fits all. So in other words, they need some customization, be it a power plant that's working on a GE turbine or a power plant that's working on a Mitsubishi turbine. Each might have separate requirements, and so we need to be more detailed about that. Also, the data uplink via the satellite that can provide this information on a continuous stream basis wasn't heretofore available.
Now, looking at this, so what you're doing then, if I understand all of this, Jim, is that you're making whatever this machine and whatever equipment's operating on, whether it's like this panorama that we're looking at here, nuclear submarine, wind turbines, whatever it is, they really become the center of the universe for this system. And then whoever is caring for that system, they know 24/7, 365 exactly all the parameters of that. Is that what you're doing through this satellite uplink and or, I would assume, internet transmission?
Yes, sir. And the great thing is they don't have to go out to the system and look at it. So we worked with Dan, and via Dan through a gentleman by the name of Pat Sheppard, introducing this to the military. So there are a number of applications within both the Navy and the Air Force and the Marines and the Army where they have different types of remote power generation in field operations or equipment operations that run on turbines, much like a power plant does today. Each one of those, especially in a desert environment, for instance, is going to be subject to mechanical breakdown as a result of the infestation of fine particulate matter. This is taken out by our system as well.
Yeah, having been in a number, I've been in 89 countries, 60 of those are very hot, some of them quite dusty places, and it just absolutely chews up engines when you have it there, and transmissions, anything is mechanical. I mean, it just goes right through them. So this is fantastic to hear about that. Well, you know, at Emerald Planet, we work with about 144 different nations, about 50,000 communities, plus or minus a few. And also we're looking for those 1,000 best practices. So what are the environmental benefits of the Orbitron 3000 that is endemic to your own equipment, but may be enhanced and beyond whatever the competition may be out there?
Here's the beauty of it, and it's incredibly simple. So for every a gallon that we clean is a gallon or a barrel that you don't buy, that doesn't come out of the ground. In addition, it's a barrel that doesn't need to be disposed of. And this is considered a hazardous waste when it comes out of the power plant or the nuclear sub or whatever. It has to be destroyed as if it were a hazardous waste. Well, you don't have to do that. So it's green on the front end, it's green on the back end. So a very simple proposition.
Yeah, and the whole thing about this too, I'm amazed you talk about this. You put in the original fluid, whatever that is, and if that machine runs for 10 years, it's still running on that original fluid.
Yes, sir.
That's an incredible claim.
Thank you. We're pretty excited about it as well. And there's a number of power plants out there in the world. When you think about it, if they're municipally owned or if they're owned by a private entity, you have different operating parameters. So the deferred maintenance may look like higher profitability on the front end, but the dirtier the machine gets, the less efficient it operates. Eventually it breaks down, you have catastrophic failure.
Well, the whole thing about that too is the longevity of the equipment, but also the maintenance. And that's where you really are just, eating up money is the long-term maintenance on this equipment. And of course, every time, some grit goes through that machine, it's actually grinding down, the valves, whatever it is, the internal workings of that machine. And that's not really good for it. Dan, why don't you ask your last question? We're about running out of time, so you got to be quick.
Jim, you mentioned Pat Sheppard of Vaporgenics. Can you just elaborate on how he's helping you, and especially this week?
Yeah, Pat's a great guy, and he's literally in Hawaii right now with, I believe, the largest accumulation of military personnel and theaters of operation operators or commanders, if you will, in the world. So tomorrow he'll be sitting down with various chiefs of staff and operational people, speaking about the Orbitron and how it can be introduced into various military applications. So tomorrow's a big day for us. We're excited.
Well, the whole thing about the military, this is something people don't realize, is that it's actually the largest humanitarian organization on the planet, bar none, and also it's the one most proactive organization going after environmental quality and environmental protection, because it has to do that to protect its budget. So looking at where you are in Orbitron, we got about 15 seconds where you see yourself in the next 5, 10, 15 years. And we got to be quick.
I will, sir. The more things we look at, the more our customers are coming to us with unique solutions. Mining companies in Canada that have to drive over price to bring lubricants.
Oh, that's absolutely incredible. This is Jim Rickson. He is a co-founder of Orbitron Dialysis for Lubricants. Dan Bice is sitting right beside me. And thank you for being with us as we look at these very innovative, proactive technologies as we create the Emerald Planet.
This is firstgov.gov, where we're obsessed with getting you government information.
Brand new student loan applications on the site, baby. This calls for a celebration. Where's your uncle?
So in the end, it was either take the astronaut gig or come work here. What can I say? Duty called.
Dude, that's my cop.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure that's Sam's cop.
Oh, sorry?
Yeah. No. Sam's? No.
Just log on or email us and get what you need.
C, change of address form. That's how it's done.
D, driver's license renewal.
E, emailing Social Security information.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice, we'll allow it. All right, Ed.
What are those?
Government surplus cars for auction.
You posted those online last time.
No, you did.
I'm posting them online this time.
For all your government information, firstgov.gov.
Oh, what have we got here? Sometimes you feel tired,
You can't seem to lose those extra pounds off your midsection. And your joints hurt when you take the stairs? Well, you're getting older. But I'm happy to say that there's some simple things we can do to keep you happy and healthy for years to come. We can also lower your risk for some serious diseases the older population is often subject to. Proper nutrition is more important than ever. Your body has changed, you know. Not as many treats. A basic exercise plan, lots of walks and fresh air, and most importantly, come and see me for twice-yearly checkups to help ensure the best possible quality of life. Now, how does that sound? Good boy.
Improve the quality of life for your elderly pet. Schedule twice-yearly checkups that include preventive care and regular lab work. A message from the veterinary members of the American Animal Hospital Association.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome back to the Emerald Planet. Thank you for being with us on a week-to-week basis. I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, President, Executive Director of Emerald Planet and Emerald Planet TV. We come to you looking at 144 different nations, 1,000 best practices, and actually we have many more than that, but any more than that, people are not going to believe it anyway. So we have 1,000 best practices that we're looking for across these 144 different nations in ways that we're going to bring about actually increased and enhanced quality of life for the 9 billion people to be on the planet by 2050. And I have sitting right beside me Dan Bice, who is the president of Terra Marco, longtime friend and just a good buddy. But we have another good friend and longtime acquaintance, Pat Sheppard, who is the president of Vaporgenics out of Tampa, Florida. And Pat, welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Thank you, Dr. Sam. Pleasure to see you and Dan.
Well, it's always good to have you. I love your energy and the young guy that you are. You put Dan and I to shame all the time. We just can't keep up with your dust even, so you're always out in front of us. Anyway,
you're
Pat,
entertaining me.
not at all. You got more energy than about 7 people. But Pat, tell us a little bit about this Vaporgenics. And we don't have your images up here. I apologize for that. But this is really a very special technology in dealing with air conditioning and other kinds of advanced things. And I'm going to use that very broadly, that are needed across the African continent, Southeast Asia, Latin America, all these different places. So tell us a little bit about Vaporgenics, and then we'll get into your focus and what you're doing with that.
Absolutely, Dr. Sam, I appreciate it. Vaporgenics is an unusual technology that we've developed over the last 5 years. And you were discussing the 60 countries you have been to that were hot. And this technology harvests the heat energy from almost any energy source to drive an engine. So, for instance, we can take thermal solar heat from the sun, and we can power up our engine, and it essentially replaces the electric motor. It's a lot of ranges of applications, but presently we have focused on making air conditioning.
Change it.
And it is quite amazing.
Okay, we have a different photograph up here in your younger days. We need to get this changed very quickly. There's that charming young man, Pat Sheppard. Thank you very much. Tell us a little bit about what's the focus of Vaporgenics and the system itself, but also understand that you made enhancements to existing technology and greatly improved it. So tell us about the origins and then what it's evolved into.
Let's start with the simplicity of the origins. The vapor system originates similar to a organic Rankine cycle, which is a steam engine, and we combine that with a Stirling linear piston cycle, and we developed the technology and got it patented so that these systems operate at a very low temperature. So we're able to make the engine work on 150 to 160 degree Fahrenheit hot water. And that is kind of the secret sauce of our system. It's a closed system. We gather heat from the sun. It powers the Stirling concept engine. And from that, we drive an air conditioning compressor to provide air conditioning for your home or for your office. And the unique thing is, if we're gathering solar heat, that's free. But we also can use other forms of waste energy to make air conditioning for cars or trucks, buildings, using heat from parking lots, using heat from a truck engine. It's quite unique, but it's a 100-year-old new application of existing combined technologies with space-age materials.
Now, that's absolutely incredible. Now, let's compare that, and then Dan has a zinging question for you here in a minute. But going back to how the other engines would operate at what temperature, since yours is operating at a much less temperature, what are they operating at? And then what are the environmental impacts of your equipment versus the others that are in the marketplace?
There are no systems like ours in the marketplace today. The most engines are electric compressors. Those compressors on a 3-ton air conditioning system, you'd be consuming about 3,500 watts of power to run that air conditioner. Our 3-ton air conditioning system would work on 700 watts. And that power can be gathered from photovoltaic collectors, and we can run this system completely off-grid or on-grid. That's very unique when you have an area that you would like to have air conditioning, but you don't have a power grid to supply it. So to be able to compare us, the only comparison we would have would be to existing super high efficiency mini-split air conditioning systems, Trane, Mitsubishi, and they would be the very best SEER, which is a seasonal, which is the expression of the efficiency of an air conditioner. They might be a SEER 28 versus our system comes in at about a SEER 45 to 55. So that'll give you an idea of how unique this technology is.
Yeah, and looking at Energy Star, which I am a certified energy rater through Energy Star, but also looking at the LEED design system, people would be getting all kinds of additional bonus points towards their certification by using your system then, because you're more than double than any other air conditioning system in the market.
Yes, when it comes to air conditioning, if we get an increase of 5 to 10%, it's a great leap forward in technology, and that's why we're on the cutting edge of a whole new concept of making air conditioning.
Now, and that's incredible, because if you look at the emerging markets of the 54 nations on the African continent as an example, across the South Pacific, Southeast Asia, Latin America, one of the impediments there, of course, is the fact is that energy is so expensive or non-existent that you just really can't develop and evolve, just like what happened in the American South when air conditioning came in. All of a sudden, industry and retail, everything just blossomed because of air conditioning, because you can control the temperatures around you.
You are spot on with that. Good observation, Dr. Sam.
No, anyway, I just think this is just incredible. It's good to know about. There'd be a lot of interest even in Europe, where now they want you, if you're going to get an air conditioning unit, they want you to be able to power it off grid, not on the grid. That's one of the demands through the European Union. So it's incredible what you're doing. Dan, your question.
Well, and that's a great segue, Pat. Tell us how this technology can benefit humankind on a global basis.
Boy, that's a giant question, Dan. on a global basis, let's break it down into simpler terms. To have power, we burn oil and we burn coal. When you're burning oil and coal, you're also causing global warming, and you're also causing a dramatic carbon footprint. If you were to take 1,000 air conditioners and replace them with the Vaporgenics air conditioning system, you would cut the energy needs by 80%. Now,
You want to, Pat? You go ahead and announce that again.
We would be able to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels by cutting our systems by 80%.
That's incredible. That's an incredible claim. And that really goes to, and I think this is the heart of what Dan's question was, that really what you're doing is you're helping to reduce greatly or maybe even eliminate some of the greenhouse gas emissions while you're reducing the energy cost to the users. So this then would be considered a disruptive technology. Would you agree to that, Pat?
Yes, I agree with that, Dr. Sam.
Now, looking at this and moving forward, in essence, you're taking hot air to fuel your AC. And of course, Dan and I are in Washington, D.C., and you know we have extreme amounts of hot air, coming out of this place. So looking at that, how can you then address across all these different climatic zones, but particularly the tropical belt, where you have these very hot temperatures, and at the same time you have emerging market nations wanting to come in and to have the same quality of life, existence, and material comfort that you have in Northern Europe, North America, Australia, New Zealand, places like that?
We have broad applications into many of those markets, and we hope to have this product and the technology developed for commercialization within the next 18 to 24 months and be available in all of those markets. To be able to have the comfort in your life to study, to work, to have a better living environment and do it off-grid and have cooling, because the more heat there is, the better the Vaporgenics system operates.
So I wasn't being facetious when I said there's a lot of hot air in Washington, D.C. that could be useful for your equipment. Of course, you come up here quite often yourself, so you know about that. I think you have another question, Dan.
Yeah, Pat, you just mentioned about 18 to 24 months. How can our listeners get involved, and when can they get involved?
Well, first we have to go through a lot of the certification processes required in the United States, and we're working on advancing our system to be a larger component, delivering more cooling and air conditioning. And then they can certainly track us on our website, and on that website we keep kind of an update of how our progress is working and when these products will be available in multiple markets.
Well, we are out of time. We have only about 25 seconds. Pat, where do you see Vaporgenics being in the next 5, 10, and 15 years?
I think it's going to be a company developing new technology that will benefit mankind.
No, can't ask for a better summary. This is Patrick. It goes by Pat Sheppard, the president of Vaporgenics out of Tampa, Florida. Sitting right beside me is Dan Bice, who is the president of Terramarco. Dan, thank you for being with us. It's really good to have you here. And thank you, dear viewers, for being with us as we look across all these various different technologies that now and in the future be making a difference for the comfort, the security, the safety of all of humankind as we go to 2050 as we create the Emerald Planet.